Disney's known for being squeaky clean, but that's never really been true. Since day one, Walt Disney Pictures have known that part of making family movies is appealing to all the family, not just children. As a result, there are plenty of innuendos and adult jokes that make it into their movies that can easily be missed if you're not paying attention, or if you're too young to understand them. So today we'll be looking at some of our favorite innuendos from Disney movies. And before we get started, be sure to subscribe to our channel. You'll be joining the notification squad and get frequent updates on new content. One more thing, why not take part in our emoji quiz? Can you guess what film these emoji are showing off? Wait to the end to find out.
Princess, your boyfriends from the circus are here.
A Bug's Life. Insects flirting. That's something you probably didn't think you'd hear about today. Yet in A Bug's Life, that happened. When Francis, part-time Lady Beetle, and full-time Dennis Leary Bug puts on a little flower hat for part of his performance at the circus, the flies mistake him for an actual lady. They react with all the tact and subtlety of a brick to the face and yell over to him,
"Wanna pollinate with a real bug?"
For those who are not particularly interested in plants and botany, pollination is how plants reproduce. Pollination usually occurs when a helpful insect like a
Cute little bumblebee
carries pollen from one plant to another. So when those bugs shout to Francis, it goes beyond innuendo. It's borderline harassment. It's cool though, because Francis is voiced by Dennis Leary and therefore takes nothing from no one.
So, being a ladybug automatically makes me a girl. Is that it, Flyboy? Huh?
The best part is that when we heard it as a kid, we had no idea what it meant at all.
That's no way to speak to a lady.
I heard that, you twig.
That wasn't me, was it?
Toy Story 3. The Potato Heads are definitely one of the greatest power couples of our time. The duo from Toy Story complement each other very well and are both ridiculously funny. At the end of the first Toy Story, all Mr. Potato Head was hoping for was a Mrs. Potato Head.
Mrs. Potato Head, Mrs. Potato Head. Hey, I can dream, can't I?
His wish was granted and he got his wife. She arrived in Andy's room, started talking, and never stopped.
I'm packing you an extra pair of shoes. You found it! And your angry eyes.
Oh, and if you get hungry, watch you! And the represents the one I left you.
When Toy Story 3 comes around, the big pink stuffed bear Lotso decides he just can't put up with her anymore. He does what any reasonable person would do and takes off her mouth. This understandably makes Mr. Potato Head very angry. He tells Lotso off, saying,
"Hey, no one takes my wife's mouth, except me."
Thankfully, none of the toys react to one of the most blatant innuendos that Disney or Pixar had ever made. We're sure that fathers laughed at the joke though. We're also sure that mothers may have been a little annoyed by it. Most importantly, we're sure that none of the kids in the audience ever knew what it meant.
The party going on now. Got a pot here. Got a pot here. Help me. I can't stop myself. Somebody rub the lamp. Somebody rub the lamp. Oh, you know I feel it. That's enough.
Aladdin and the King of Thieves. Robin Williams' performance as the genie is really the heart and soul of both films he appears in. He ad-libbed a lot and the character of the genie was drastically changed in order to fit his humor. He's also the source of most of the innuendos in Aladdin, such as when he makes a joke about him and Aladdin dating. The second time Genie saves Aladdin's life, he says,
"Getting kind of fond of you, kid. Not that I want to pick out curtains or anything."
In Aladdin and the King of Thieves, he cracks another one. When a stampede begins and the earth begins to shake, the genie lets out another one-liner.
"I thought the earth wasn't supposed to move until the honeymoon."
A slightly classier innuendo than before, but still not something that you typically expect to see in a Disney movie. Admittedly, that's partly because most Disney movies either don't show the Disney princess's wedding or end just after it. Although with that said, Aladdin is so different tonally from other Disney movies that it's one of the only settings in which these sorts of jokes wouldn't seem out of place or character.
She believed in heaven, so she's covered, you know, afterlife-wise.
Ratatouille. There's not much worse than the idea of rats in your kitchen. They steal the food.
We are not thieves.
They make a mess and they make everyone around them feel uncomfortable. Yet the idea of rats being in the kitchen is not the most uncomfortable thing in Ratatouille. Instead, it's the blatant innuendos. Now, we're not prudish by any means, but Pixar really went all out this time around. The funniest one is when Linguini attempts to explain that his amazing cooking is not his work, but the work of a rat. However, explaining the concept of a rat making your food isn't the easiest thing to get out. He begins to tell his love interest,
I have this tiny, little...
It's not the most creative innuendo that the movie could have made, but it made us laugh. The second one just made us feel weird. The scariest character in the movie, legendary food critic Anton Ego, tells Linguini,
"If I don't love it, I don't swallow."
Blatant innuendo aside, the idea of that man not loving his food and spitting back out is not only gross, but also explains why he's so ungodly thin.
And you're thin for someone who likes food.
I'm Yao, king of the rock.
Oh, yeah? Well, I think Ping and I can take you.
I really don't want to take him anywhere.
Mulan. It stands to reason that a movie based around a woman dressing as a man to fight a war would have some innuendo, and the awkwardness of being the only woman surrounded by a platoon full of men who don't know your secret and wouldn't approve if they did. The movie makes a few jokes, such as Mulan having to hide her chest while swimming in the lake with her friends.
There are a couple of things I know they're bound to notice.
The best part is that even when she is found out, the friends that she makes love her regardless and fight by her side. Mushu, the comic relief guardian dragon, does get a few gags in. He says,
"My eyes can see straight through your armor." Oh!
It's a pretty funny scene from a pretty funny film. Mushu and Mulan make digs at each other throughout the film, but through it all they stay close allies and motivate each other to keep going. The innuendo isn't exactly a hidden one, and we think most kids would catch on straight away, but that doesn't mean it's not a fun joke.
And don't you slap me no more. We clear on that? All right. Okay, let's get this show on the road.
Wait, whoa. Oh, nymphs. They can't keep their hands off me.
Hercules. Hercules is an unusual movie. It's set in ancient Greece, but it uses Hercules' Roman name. The soundtrack is gospel, and the aesthetic style is that of Vegas hybridized with traditional Greek pottery art. So we'd like to think that there would be some fun cultural jokes in there. Hercules has had quite a few historical jumps, and it managed to double one up with a naughty innuendo. When Hercules and Meg go out on a date to the theater, it's mentioned that they go to see Sophocles' classic Oedipus. The play is about Oedipus becoming the king of Thieves, but unbeknownst to him, he has done so by killing his father and marrying his mother. That's pretty gross. Oedipus finds out, is horrified with himself, and, well, it doesn't go very well from there. How does Hercules respond to seeing the play?
Man, I thought I had problems.
If there was ever a play to make you feel better about your family situation, it's definitely Oedipus. It's a hilarious joke that's quite often missed because of how obscure a reference it is. For the history and theater buffs out there, it's a hilarious gag, with just the right amount of blue humor to it.
In there?
It's the TV, trying to watch.
Because of its highly sensitive nature.
Well,
this mission
stop
does not
crying. It's time for dinner.
1 minute.
The Incredibles. The Incredibles is without a doubt the most mature film that Pixar has ever made. It isn't only dark, but funny with tons of adult references. One of the earliest is when Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl first meet on a rooftop. They make eyes at each other, flirt, and Elastigirl mentions that Mr. Incredible should really be more
flexible.
So not only does she make an innuendo, but it's also a filthy pun too. There's also a sneaky little reference to a superhero abusing his powers. The montage showing the downfall of the superhero era cuts to a newspaper article of a superhero with X-ray vision using it to spy on people. It's brief, but it's dark too. A superhero gets embroiled in scandals in a way reminiscent of Watchmen. The third and final joke we're going to talk about today is Elastigirl's harsh reaction to Mirage hugging Mr. Incredible after saving his life. She immediately takes it the wrong way and beats the woman down. Considering Elastigirl wasn't feeling too secure in her relationship, we can understand.
Sight of all these deceased creatures gives me a shrinky winky.
101 Dalmatians. 101 Dalmatians got a live-action Disney remake before it was cool. It featured more or less the same story, but this time featured Glenn Close playing Cruella de Vil, an already scary character being portrayed by the terrifying actress from Fatal Attraction. That's a combination that could keep anyone up at night. The movie didn't get a great reaction though, with a lot of people criticizing the direction and humor. What sort of humor did the film utilize, you ask? Well, there is an incredibly inappropriate joke that made us laugh but could upset some. When Roger and Anita tell Cruella that they're expecting a baby, she's not especially impressed and barely has a reaction. She's not exactly the nicest person around, however, when they say that they're also having puppies, not specifically that Pongo and Purdy were, her attention peaks and says,
"You have been a busy boy."
And that might possibly be the most disgusting joke ever made in a Disney film. We can understand why humor like this didn't really find its mark with the audience, but Glenn Close delivers the line with brilliant timing and expression. She's perfectly evil with a twisted sense of humor.
The peasant at the diner. He didn't pay his check.
The Emperor's New Groove. The Emperor's New Groove is one of the funniest films that Disney has ever produced. The majority of the really effective comedy comes from its two villains, Yzma and Kronk. A recurring joke with Yzma is her appearance, which is described as being scary beyond all reason.
Yeah, that's it.
They make the most of her scary appearance late in the movie near the final confrontation.
Then I bet you weren't expecting this.
She pulls up her dress and begins to reveal her leg, implying that she may have been a man in disguise. Cusco and Pacha cover their eyes and react in disgusted fashion. She pulls the dress up further to reveal a knife. The heroes are actually relieved that she's just gonna try to stab them. Their panicked minds took both them and the audience somewhere way different. There's another possible innuendo earlier in the film in which Kronk has pitched a tent over his hips. Some have taken that to be a literal innuendo, others think that it's just a joke about his size and how much more Yzma has than him. Which is the real answer? We'll probably never know.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
So cute. It's like a little baby unicorn.
Frozen. In the older Disney films, it was pretty common for a princess to be swept away and marry someone that she barely knows. Love at first sight is a powerful thing in the realm of fantasy. In Frozen, when Kristoff and Anna first meet, they get into a heated debate over whether or not it's smart for Anna to get engaged to Hans. Anna, who's sheltered and naive, doesn't really understand what the issue is with marrying someone she doesn't know. After all, who doesn't want to be swept away by a handsome prince? Kristoff isn't as sold in the idea though. The reindeer-loving country boy points out all the reasons that this setup marriage is a horrible idea. Kristoff remarks that they know nothing about each other. They don't even know what each other's favorite food is, the color of their eyes, or their foot sizes. Anna coyly responds,
"Foot size doesn't matter."
Children aren't gonna get close to understanding this double entendre, and we're definitely relieved about that. After all, children don't need to know what a hard life they have in store for them if they have big feet. Finding big shoes is tough. Although Kristoff was absolutely right about Hans. That guy was bad news. That's all we got time for today. We hope you had fun looking at some of the more awkward Disney jokes. Were there any that we missed that we should have included? If so, comment below and let us know. Before we go, one last thing. If you played the emoji quiz today and answered this, then you were right. Remember to subscribe to get more videos from our playlist, and as always, thanks for watching.
Wait a minute. We're not getting out of here, man! We're not getting out of here! Don't you understand it, man? This is it. Game's over, man!